Welcome to Coding with Tom. Today we will be adding perks to our implementation. These perks will have a cooldown time that we will present to the user with a progress view. Let's begin by creating our model. So we'll create a perk. This will have a value, a name, and several other variables just to help the presentation regarding image names. We will also have a type since we will have different types of perk. We will begin with just one for the harvest, which will increase the gold, and another one that will increase the attack of a castle. Our source of truth for the perks will be the Perk Service. Here we will have a publisher to notify changes, and we will be just updating the perks whenever the user uses one. When a perk is used, the only thing we need to do is update the last use date, and that's it. For this lesson, we will need two use cases. One of them will be get the perks publisher, and the other one will be to use a perk when the user taps on it. We want to display an outcome to the user when he taps on one of the perks. For that, we need to create two new outcomes. One is when we use a gold perk, that's the harvest, and the other one when we use an attack one, the smith. No matter the type, we will always call the perk service to use that perk and update it. Then for the gold perk, we modify the gold with the kingdom service and then notify the outcome. For the attack perk, we update a random castle in the kingdom service, and then also notify the outcome. Since we added new cases to the outcome, we need to take those into account in our outcome view model. So let's add the title and also the outcome entries that each of these new cases have. Okay, now that our project is building, let's go to the dashboard scene and actually add the perks. Right now our action view model is constrained to just the add castle method. We're going to change that so that we can create action view models from perks. Just like we have been doing in previous implementations, instead of having one subscriber per publisher, we're going to create a set of any cancelable, and each time we subscribe to one of the publishers, we store that subscription in this set. That way we just have one variable. We will need a presenter that will give us an action view model from a perk. This is pretty straightforward. The only difference here is that we will have a start and end date when the cooldown of the perk is ongoing. If the end date already passed, there's no sense in showing a cooldown progress view since the perk is active. We also need to update the actions in our view model since now when the user taps on an action, it doesn't always add a castle. We need to get the index of the tapped action and then react accordingly. It's either add a castle if the index was 0, else we will use a perk. Let's try running this. And we have now our perks. They're a little bit cramped together, so let's add a bit of padding. All that's left now is to add our progress view. Let's start with the view model. We will have a start and end date, and we'll have a progress that the view model will be constantly updating. And the progress we will calculate it from the difference between the start date, the current date, and the end date. To have this periodical update of the progress, we'll use a timer. From our implementation on UIKit of this progress view, we learned that it's better not to use the timer static function since it will schedule a timer running on the main thread. What's better here is to create a timer and then add it to a different run loop. Now with our view model, we can go to our view and instantiate it from there. So our view will be created with a start and end date, and that's what we're going to use to create our view model in the initializer. The circular view that we will use to display the progress is going to be a shape. A shape just needs to implement the path method, which returns a path. Our path will be drawn according to a progress, and what we're going to do is draw an arc with a UI Bezier path, and we'll calculate the angle using the progress. We will embed our progress circle in a geometry reader just to give it a frame. Let's look at the documentation to see why I chose these angles. Let's expand the figure 1 and you will see that 3 pi halves is on the top, and what we're going to do is move clockwise to show the progress view. Let's add a default value to see why it's not displaying. Oh, this is what happens. Our progress circle is a shape, so we need to add the stroke modifier to it. Okay, that's better. We also need to be careful here in our view model, so when we tap on a perk, we need to check that the cooldown time has passed. We will handle showing or hiding the progress view through a binding variable in our progress view. We'll be updating it when the view model reports the cooldown is complete. Okay, first thing, we had a sort of anti-pattern. We were checking the validity of the perk cooldown time outside of the perk class. This is a responsibility that belongs in the model. So what we're going to do is calculate this variable inside of the perk, and other classes can just use this. That way we don't have to repeat this date comparison logic everywhere. On our actions that we're also making another mistake. The state, you shouldn't initialize it like that. You need to actually use the state initializer. Other than that, but we're not going to be using it. We're instead going to be using the start date in the view model, which is better. And here our view model was not observable, so we were not listening to changes in it. We're not being notified. Lastly, I think our progress view was one of the bigger culprits. I was using a lot of UIKit related stuff, so we didn't actually need the geometry reader. We didn't need to say UI Bezier path. It's just checking if the view model is complete. We show an empty view, else we show the progress circle. For our background, we will be using a white color with a bit of an alpha, so we can see the perk that's behind the progress view. And here, let's make changes to just use path. Path also has a method to draw an arc, and we don't need to do any transformation to CG path and then path. Since we want our path to have an aspect ratio of 1 to 1, we will calculate the minimum between the width and the height of the rectangle we're passed in the path method, and then that will be the radius. Let's see how it works with these changes. Tap on the harvest, and here we have our progress view. And that was all for today. Now we have perks in our implementation. Adding the progress view was relatively easy. The issue here was that I was trying to use UIKit logic. I didn't actually need to calculate the frame, the size of the progress view. It was just letting it lay out in the view as I should have done from the beginning. Hope you liked it. Bye.